like all little fellows, I sort of had an ambition to be an All Black, and to attain it was just amazing, and I've pinched myself ever since.
Brian Hall came in on the Thursday night and said you're making your debut on Saturday.
There I was amongst it all, and from there on it all became a bit of a blurry world, really.
It was a great moment though, but you know, I couldn't believe it. Still can't.
As a 19-year-old Polynesian boy, I was pretty scared about it all, really.
Every day I pulled that black jersey on was a day of, you know, just happiness really, because you know that the next one you might not be picked.
When you pulled it on, you had a feeling of pride. You wanted to do what you could for what it represented, and yes, it was something very, very special.
It was a relief to first wear it and become an All Black, and to me it was just everything.
Briscoe picks it up. Out to Arnold, to John Graham. He pivots, looking for support. It's there. Colin Mead tackled, but his great strength dragged him over the line for a wonderful try.
Beautifully back to Laidlaw. Nicely out to Davis. This is the centre playing it stand up. Magnificent run by Davis. Can he get there? It's a try for Kirsten.
Brian Williams going back, looking for space. And through and getting it. Great try. Brian Williams. Murray. Oh, magnificent! A great try in the corner for the All Black captain. Kirk, Fox, Jones, Kirk. Cullen up Wilson. Good chase here by Wilson. He's got the bounce. That's two for Wilson. Kelleher. Randall pops up to Lover. Here we go. Can he make it? You betcha. You betcha. Jonathan. As Devine feeds Spencer Rocket, no chance straight through. He had too much pace, I think, should go all the way. What a great try. Fantastic.
Our first official test was against the Aussies in 1903, but 1905 was when rugby folklore really began with the tour of the British Isles. All told, the team was away from home for more than 7 months on a tour that proved to be an outstanding success.
We were a very young team going back to the mother country. And yet this great team, which was later dubbed the Originals, beat the British at their game.
They didn't just beat them, they thrashed them. In 32 games, the team amassed an incredible 830 points, conceding only 39. They swept aside Ireland, Scotland and England, but the Welsh were another matter.
What they really did was introduce to Britain a level of rugby that the British just hadn't seen before. And of all the people, the Welsh in particular appreciated that most. And the Welsh sent their management committee around several games in England to watch the All Blacks and just work out how they could be beaten. As history sadly records, the only loss the Originals had was against Wales when they were beaten 3-0.
Despite that one loss, the Originals returned home to a hero's welcome. They'd not only put New Zealand on the map for the first time, they'd set an enduring standard for the black jersey. It was nearly 20 years before the All Blacks returned to Britain. The side which left New Zealand in 1924 was determined to uphold the nation's rugby reputation and to avenge the loss to Wales. And avenge it they did. This great side won all 28 matches of their tour and outclassed the Welsh by 19-0. The final test against England started badly when Cyril Brownlee was sent off in the opening minutes. The first time anyone had been ordered off in an international. Despite playing with just 14 men, the All Blacks dominated the English and won by 17 points to 11. Thus the likes of Bert Cook, Bob Irvine, the Brownlee brothers and the great George Napier earned their place in history and their name, the Invincibles.
Back in New Zealand has just, you know, basked in all this reflected glory about the rugby players, and it just confirmed yet again and laid even deeper the foundation that rugby was the national game, because it was the one thing that we could do better than anyone else in the world.
Unfortunately, there was another country that also thought it was better than the rest, South Africa. In the 20s, we played each other twice for 2 drawn series. That meant the Springbok Tour of 37 was for boasting rights to the unofficial championship of the world.
Crowd estimated at 50,000 at this stage. Many hundreds are still streaming to the ground, and many others won't be able to get in.
In the deciding test at Eden Park, a packed crowd saw the Springboks take total control, and national pride took an absolute hammering.
The score says 17 points to 6, and so that looks quite good historically now, but it was 5 tries to 0. So this was a great tactical victory by the Springboks. In fact, there was a joke that went around for many years and is possibly still said even today. What was the best team that ever left to New Zealand? And the answer is the 1937 Springboks.
Revenge would be a long time coming. The 1949 All Blacks headed to South Africa with huge public expectation, but again, the nation would be disappointed. Despite scoring more tries than South Africa, New Zealand lost all 4 tests by a narrow margin. The standard of South African referees would later become a major talking point, but the 49 All Blacks decided to keep their concerns to themselves.
I said, just let's forget about it. We're beaten, and that's it. So one of the greatest things that made me proud of that team was about 16 years, I think, or 17 years before anybody came out and complained about refereeing. And they certainly had plenty of room to complain.
When the Springboks toured New Zealand in 1956, the rugby public was hungry for revenge.
I was, like every kid in New Zealand at the time, very aware that the Springboks were coming, and this was our chance to avenge them and win a series at home for the first time. And believe me, the whole country was in a ferment by the time the team got here.
This will be remembered as one of the most fiercely contested and brutal test series in All Black history. The All Blacks won the first test, but the Boks came back in the second, thanks in large part to their intimidating pack with a dominant front row. Props Jaap Becker and Chris Koch outmuscled their All Black opponents. A desperate New Zealand rugby public demanded big changes for the third test.
The voice that came on the radio had a particularly deep and flat tone, and I can remember very clearly fullback D.B. Clark Waikato. And then they added Peter Jones back in the team, and then they brought back Kevin Skinner to sort out these monsters in the Springbok front row.
Legend has it that Skinner was brought back because of his boxing skills. The man himself sees it differently.
I played enough rugby not to have to worry about getting into a side because of my other skills, which really weren't all that bloody good in any case.
New cap Don Clark puts New Zealand ahead in the opening minutes with a long-range penalty. But with the Springboks persisting with questionable tactics, it wasn't long before Skinner made his presence felt.
If you tried any funny business, you knew damn well that you were going to get the wrong end of the stick sooner or later. And that's what some of them did have a crack at, and I objected to it.
He is a very modest man, and I don't think he's ever really told the full story of what happened, because, you know, rugby players then and now, what happens on the field stays on the field. But it was quite evident that he not only had the strength, but he also had the technique and the competitiveness to sort the South Africans out, and sorted out they were.
Jaapie Becker did try to drop his shoulder on me. Yeah, and I said, that'll do, Jaapie. And I gave him a bit of a nudge. But, you know, he stopped. He thought, well, OK, we'll get on with the game.
With the Bok front row subdued, the All Blacks were back on track. And when Tiny White went over in the corner in the dying moments of the game, the All Blacks had secured a famous victory by 17 points to 10. The home side was 2-1 up with 1 test to play.
65
Eden Park was packed to the gunnels for the final test, the crowd eager to witness an historic victory. Don Clark was again on target with what was to become a legendary boot. And although Peter Jones' stunning solo effort was the only All Black try, it was enough. At last, after 35 years of trying, New Zealand could celebrate its first series win over South Africa.
And New Zealand's young hero, Don Clark.
The '63 tour of Great Britain was a huge success. Only a draw against the Scots prevented a Grand Slam. Yet the British press slated them for playing dour 10-man rugby. Captain Wilson Whineray waited till the Barbarians match to show British fans what the All Blacks could really do.
Dennis Young charging down the kick. Colin Simpson, who's played extremely well in this high-class company. Here goes Walker Nathan. Inside to Colin Meads. Now Whineray. That was an adjustment. And here goes Laidlaw, and Colin Meads is over. And a really splendid try. Forward power, epitomised by this giant from the King country.
We turned around at, I think, 6-5. We were in front against a virtual Lions side. And then we finished the game 36-5. We scored 30 points in the second half. Now, in these days, that's not many, you know, but in our day, scoring 10 or 15 and a half took some doing.
One try in particular was especially popular with the Cardiff Arms crowd.
There'll always be a welcome in the hillsides in Wales for this New Zealand side if they play rugby like this. Paul Little, magnificent dummy, Whineray. Oh, I hope he scores it himself. Yes, he has. Oh, marvellous. The perfect climax. How magnificent.
Willie hadn't scored a try on the whole tour, actually, for that one, and I always remember we had words about that try he got then, and because a week before that I think we were playing France and I messed up a try we should have got, and Willie gave me a hell of a lecture because it was either him or Ralph Colton, one either side of me, and I had a little dip on my own and I never succeeded, and I got a fair rack-ow for that. But and I can remember when he sold me that dummy, it was me he sold the dummy to score under the posts against the Barbars, and I can remember sidling up to him and I said, "And you called me a greedy bugger." I can remember saying that to him, but it was a great occasion.
And if Wilson Whineray, this great New Zealand skipper, bows out in the big time on this note, what happy memories he will have, and us of him. For he's a jolly good fellow, they're singing now.
Whineray was back in charge in '65 when the Springboks returned. They'd beaten the All Blacks in South Africa in 1960, so it was payback time once again. With forwards like Lahore, Meads, Tremaine and Gray, the All Blacks had the power up front to do the job. They won the first two tests, but Whineray's men were to get a surprise in the third.
De Villiers to Barnard to Gainsford. He jinks his way brilliantly past the brace of All Blacks to score a magnificent try.
I don't know what really happened, but we were 16-5 up at half-time, I think, and got beaten 19-16. And I can remember saying to Wilson that last penalty that Tiny Naughty kicked, and it was me that was penalised. I said, "This big clown won't kick this," and went straight between the posts. It was a wake-up call to us, but when we came to Auckland, there was no way. You know, we were very determined, and we had one ambition, and it wasn't going to be that they could draw the series or anything like that. They never got into the game. We were hot to go, and we were right on target.
The All Blacks put together one of their most complete performances. Forwards and backs combined magnificently, and they ran away with the match, scoring 5 tries to win by 20 points to 3. A record score and the most comprehensive drubbing the Springboks had ever suffered. It was a fitting send-off for one of New Zealand's most popular captains.
To win that was a great deal of satisfaction to me, in your and to be able to sidle up to Frick Dupree and some of those fellas after the game and have a beer with them with that inner feeling of pride and we've beaten you buggers, knowing they were hurting.
At the end of 1967, the All Blacks set off once more for a tour of the British Isles. This was a great era in All Black rugby. Colin Meads was at the peak of his powers, and leading the side was another North Island farmer, Brian Lahore. At the helm, Fred the Needle Allen. Known as a hard taskmaster, Allen would not lose a single test as All Black coach.
I have the greatest respect for Fred Allen. He was just a superb person, fiery, but that's what makes good rugby players, I guess.
If anyone criticised one of his All Blacks, hell, he'd be up in arms. You didn't criticise his players. They're my boys, you know, sort of thing. He was allowed to criticise. He used to abuse the hell out of us.
Graham Thorne told me that Fred Allen and Charles Saxton, the manager, had both come out of the Second World War, and they insisted that the team members went down to breakfast wearing a jacket and tie. Now, I've seen All Blacks in modern times go down bare-chested. I've seen them go down in recent years and nobody bats an eyelid, T-shirts and track pants, and maybe that's fine. But Fred Allen was a man for discipline.
It's very important. It is your discipline because you're the window of your own, of New Zealand, and they've got to behave. I mean, that's part and parcel of it. They're lucky to be there.
Fred Allen was also a fan of attacking, entertaining rugby, and England paid the price.
Beautifully back to Laidlaw, nicely out to Davis. This is the centre playing at stand-off. Magnificent run by Davis. Can he get there? It's a try for Curtin. Hogan, he's at stand-off. This is Lahore from the number 8 position, committing the backs. This is McRae, the big Hawke's Bay centre. Nicely back from Williams. Laidlaw working the narrow side. This is Curtin. Curtin, can he get to the line? I think it's going to be another brilliant try. Has he touched the touch-in goal flag? We'll see. And the referee has given the try.
Although 15-man rugby was the order of the day, the backs acknowledged that the big guys up front were making their job a whole lot easier.
I thought, what a lucky bugger you are. You've got, look at that pack. That'd be one of the greatest packs the world's ever seen.
The Welsh were the next to feel the power of the All Black forwards.
See how they're controlling that ball, keeping it in, a tremendous drive. That really is brilliant scrummaging, magnificent scrummaging.
And then you got a half-back to throw you so far wide that no one's ever going to get near you.
Anyway, here's Laidlaw, Curtin, McRae, Curtin on the overlap. There must be a try here, surely. Curtin, beautifully out to Davis, and Davis has scored.
In the final test against Scotland, the All Blacks again played entertaining rugby, but one incident soured a near-perfect tour.
Michael trying to haul Colin Meads out of it. Hasty in there as well, and that's no place for a man like Hasty. In goes Meads trying to loosen the ball with his foot, and the crowd didn't like that one. And this is going to be very interesting because I have a feeling that Colin Meads may have been ordered off the field.
The hooker for Scotland at the time was a chap Laidlaw, and I actually was in the back of a Scotch ruck, and they were kicking shit out of me, put it that way. None more than Laidlaw, but I came out with the ball out their side, and I was able to hit the halfback's arm as he was passing it, and so the ball shot along the ground, but I kicked the ball, but he did a cartwheel at the same time. And, well, this Laidlaw come out the back of the, because he'd been giving me hell in the back of the ruck, and he'd scream at the referee, "You just see that dirty bastard, you see what?" It was him that got me sent off, because I've always told Kelleher, you didn't really see it, did you? And he reckons he did, but it was Laidlaw that got me sent off. It was a sad occasion. It's one no one wants to, but I can always remember when I got back to New Zealand, I said, I want to be remembered as an All Black, not as a player who was sent off. And I think I've achieved that, you know, somewhere along the line.
Most people realise that he didn't intend to kick him. He wasn't a kicker either. I mean, he wouldn't kick people. He'd whack them, but he wouldn't kick them.
Colin Meads was still towering over the game in 1970 when the All Blacks returned to South Africa. But it was a 19-year-old who set the tour alight.
Being a new boy, I guess I wasn't as well marked as what I was in later career. So it meant that I had a bit more space, a bit more freedom, and yeah, I managed to dot down a few.
Even when the box didn't give him much space, Williams impressed with his strength and speed, and his Test career got off to a flying start.
That is a great try in anyone's language. Here's de Villiers on the
But the South Africans weren't short of pace themselves. Gert Muller on fire as the Boks take a 2-1 lead in the best-of-4 series.
Lifting it up high there, but a tight head to New Zealand.
The All Blacks made changes in a bid to square the series, and they had their moments in the 4th Test, with the brilliance of Williams again showing through.
New Zealand, and he's going to score right under the posts. A great try to Brian Williams.
But in the end, it was too little, too late.
10 minutes or so to go. Furlong, McRae, Kemba's up as the extra man with Dick outside of him. Rowe, Muller.
The Springboks were too good, and New Zealand left South Africa empty-handed again.
The ball wouldn't bounce us in the 4th Test otherwise. You know, drawn series probably would have been, well, certainly better than the lost series, that's for sure. So it was annoying, but that's life, isn't it? You can't get everything going your way all the time.
And that was to be the case for the next few years. The All Blacks were back in Britain in 1972 after losing a series to the Lions for the first time. The Welsh side was a powerful one, with the stars of that Lions side still at the peak of their powers.
Going hoists one. Bevan again waits. Going has him. John Williams had to go in. The whole Welsh, New Zealand back are there, and it could be a try for Keith Murdoch. The New Zealand forwards moved up there like a great black blanket.
The All Blacks won the Test by 19 points to 16, but the victory would be bittersweet.
We weren't expected to actually win that game, but we did. Great celebrations that night, but also lots of antagonism towards us. You know, we'd defeated their heroes, and there were lots of abuse and ill feeling, I guess, as the night unfolded.
Keith Murdoch had been celebrating late into the night when he got into a scuffle with the security guard at the team's Cardiff hotel. British officials demanded action. Murdoch had to go or the tour would be cancelled. So Keith Murdoch, All Black, was gone, vanishing into self-imposed exile in outback Australia.
I just think that had the New Zealand Rugby Union and the players held firm, you know, nothing would have happened. And I mean, it's had a huge impact on Keith Murdoch's life. Very sad.
Keith comes back to New Zealand now and again. I've never seen him again, but you know, I only wish him well. And in the future, they'll we're going to have New Zealand caps given to players, and Keith will be invited to come, and I hope he does. But the problem would be that I don't think the news media would leave him alone.
Eden Park has not always been equal to Auckland's subtropical weather. Scotland found that out in the only All Black Test of 1975.
Yeah, in retrospect, the game probably shouldn't have been played. It was Eden Park was underwater, Lake Eden, I think they were calling it on the day.
Despite the conditions, the All Blacks still managed to score a couple of memorable tries.
Kirkpatrick, Hamish McDonald, and the All Blacks have scored. McDonald feeds going. Karam again, kicking for Williams. Lewis Dick pressured by Williams. Brian Williams going backwards, looking for space, and through and getting it. Great try, Brian Williams.
In '76, it was time for another shot at winning a series in South Africa. Again, it was not to be. After 3 tests, the All Blacks were 2-1 down and needing a win in the 4th to salvage some pride.
Tiny Norton, Ian Kirkpatrick, try!
Kirkpatrick's try put the All Blacks on track to square the series.
As the match wears on, a long pass going to Williams.
But it was the referee, Gert Bezuidenhout, who would have the final say.
Kevin Everly, Bruce Robertson, has he got the pace? Bruce Robertson, Ian Robertson, and the number 12, Oosthuizen, took Robertson out of the play, and Kirkpatrick demands that it should be a penalty try, but it's only a penalty for the All Blacks.
If that try had have been awarded as a penalty try, we might have won But even if New Zealand had got ahead and got one of those tries and kicked off again at halfway, when I was commentating, I always had the feeling that South Africa would get a last penalty shot at goal in the last minutes.
And the match is over!
But the damage had already been done. The Springboks scraped home, leaving the All Blacks frustrated and angry.
When we came off, I don't think there had been... I've never seen an All Black team react like it. Never, ever. And I wouldn't really want to see it again. They were furious, you know. Everybody was just so wild because we knew we'd been done.
We had conversations with various of the referees, and I remember one of them, I think it was Gert Bezaden, who said that as we were leaving, he said, "Boys," he said, "you're able to go home." He said, "I've got to still live here."
In 1977, the All Blacks toured France and discovered the real meaning of intimidation.
We got in this little soccer tunnel, and it's like a little tunnel, only meant for one team to walk out, to run out. Two teams were trying to get out there at the same time, and I looked across, we're shoulder to shoulder, and I looked up and I saw this guy called Jared Cholly, the former French boxing champion, who was the tight head prop. And the program was wrong. He was bigger and wider. And where they all had to duck down this concrete tunnel, he was punching the roof and looking at me and going, "Ah!" And there was blood coming off the knuckles. No, this is true. And I turned around and thought, this is frightening. This is terrific, but this is scary crap. I couldn't get out of that tunnel quick enough. It was like, if I was claustrophobic, I've got to get out, fresh air. And I ran out, and then I got 45,000 screaming Frenchmen booing at me. And it was war. It was a war zone.
Knight took another one, Gary Knight. See the man on the ground at the back, number 3, Gary Knight. Oh boys, he's tough.
Gary Knight just got eye gouged. We got everything. You think the boys have it hard in the year 2003? Tell you what, back in '77 when it was, you know, not so much legal, but it went on and everyone turned a blind eye to it, she was a war zone. We got hammered.
22 metres line, steady is Bertrand. Quella just near the line. A try for Robert Puffer inboard.
1 week later, Jack Gleeson, Graham Murray, got us in a team room and said, right, to the forwards, let's admit one thing. We're not big and strong enough to take them on. That was the first thing the forward pack had to buy into. Admit that they're bigger and better than us. Frank Oliver stood up and said, they are. So everyone stood up and said, they are. Right, sit down. How are we going to beat them? This is how we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them with cunning. We're going to beat them with speed. We're going to beat them with skill. We're going to outrun them, and we're going to outthink them. We are not going into a confrontational zone with these guys. We're going to be like snipers, hit and run, hit and run, hit and run.
So, in the first minutes of the second half, the All Blacks are going to play this game at pace, it would seem, in the second 40 minutes, trying to keep the Frenchmen rattled. Bruce Robertson! Stu Wilson, a try!
Dotted one down under the bin, and I was walking back through the 22, and I went, I detoured to Cholly.
Can you believe it?
And said, hey, fatso, how are you feeling now? And walked on. Not too good on the English, but he knew. I said, have a look at that scoreboard, and we've still got 40 to go. You guys are trolleyed.
And they were. The French Giants had been outsmarted and outscored, 15 points to 3. In 1978, the All Blacks toured Britain again in search of the elusive Grand Slam.
We weren't a particularly great side. We had some good players, but we didn't win the test matches by much. There was only a few points in pretty well all of the test matches. But the fact was we knew how to dig deep and we knew how to play for one another, and we were never going to give in.
They dug deep to beat the Irish, and then a week later the All Blacks were trailing the Welsh by 2 points with minutes left on the clock. Desperate times called for desperate measures.
I think Graham Murray called it. Andy took over and said, right, it's your call, should we do it? Yeah, why not?
I certainly went to the middle of the field to tell Murray that that was what was going to happen in that line-out. It wasn't a question I was asking him if we could. I was telling him that was what we were going to be doing.
What they were going to be doing was milking a penalty.
Windsor. Holmes. Penalty, is it? Yes. Hayden was pushed out of the line-out.
Actually, Hayden wasn't pushed at all. He and Frank Oliver took a theatrical dive, and the ref awarded the penalty.
You live with those things, and if you try and disguise them or cop out or hide from it later on, well, you know, that's another way of going about it. That's not mine. I take it on the chin, and as I said, I'm not terribly proud of it, but I think there's a lot of people who are very proud of a Grand Slam in '78.
The ref might have been conned, but the replacement fullback still had to kick the points.
This could be the kick of the decade for Brian McKechnie. McKechnie!
So the All Blacks scraped home against the Welsh. After beating England, only Scotland and the fast-fading light stood between them and a Grand Slam.
A high kick to Test Irvin. He's let this one bounce in the gloom. And he spilt it forward again.
The images that you see on the screen are the kind of images that everybody knows about, accentuated by the electronic advantages of a camera. The naked eye at the ground was blackness.
The gloom is absolutely total now. Lawson swings it. McGeechan will he drop kick. Chance down by Bruce. All Blacks up to halfway. Osmond kicking through. 22 metres line. Has Robertson got the speed? He has.
When the try was scored behind the post, some of the All Black players, as the men ran back to halfway, weren't sure who to congratulate because they were only 30 yards away. They weren't sure whether it was Brian Williams or Bruce Robertson who'd scored the try. It was really, it was a black afternoon. How corny is that? But it was a great afternoon because they finally clinched the Grand Slam.
They won by 18-9 and have become the first All Blacks side to win the Grand Slam. They have done it, but this is a day that we must all never forget.
A year later, the Wallabies gave an old piece of silverware a new lease on life.
We played badly, they played well, and all of a sudden, you know, we're walking off. She's a big track deal SCG, yeah, you know, making her way up through the Don Bradman stand to find some place to hide. And we turned around and here were the Aussies parading with the Bledisloe Cup. Now, I said to someone, I said, what the hell's that?
So the Australian team, captained by Mark Lone, doing a victory circuit. I've not seen this before in rugby.
It used to reside under the stairs at the Hurrett Parker building in Wellington, in the broom cupboard there somewhere. I don't think it ever saw any brasso. Certainly didn't get taken around the field head high in a lap of honour after a victory. And that spurred the All Blacks for quite a long time after we saw that. And it wasn't so much that it was a lap of honour, it was the 2 laps of honour that they did.
Well, a big day for the flag-waving Australians.
Here they are, they're parading like sort of like little kids. Of the first piece of trophy they'd won, you know, and they brag about it. We'd had it for 30 years, we didn't brag. And they did a victory lap. But,
As rich as our rugby heritage is, it's still in its infancy compared with one of our oldest rivals. It was back in 1980 that the All Blacks helped the Welsh celebrate their centenary. Cardiff Arms Park was rugby's most famous stage, the Welsh anthem its most famous voice.
You know, you're always warned about it and what it'll do, but until you can witness it and, you know, to stand in front of 70,000 Welsh singers, it was unique, and because they can all sing, and the conductor goes out into the ground. He doesn't conduct a band or anything, he conducts the crowd.
as visitors to the Arms Park, you go, wow, this is a huge adrenaline rush. And for a guy like me, who swings in moods, I just need that stuff.
Down, away to Loveridge, intercept by Richards!
The match was a celebration of Welsh rugby down the years.
trying to find the speedsters out in the centre.
And the home team contributed to the festive mood.
Davis, now they've got it up to Elgin Rees.
But an All Black side on top of its game gate-crashed the party.
Loveridge, a line-up here now for New Zealand. Bruce Robertson, they must run the try for Stu Wilson. Murray. Oh, magnificent! A great try at the corner for the All Black captain.
Murray's memorable try sealed a famous victory. But a year later, the captain would make himself unavailable for the most controversial Test series of all. 1981 will always be remembered as the year rugby and politics collided.
I certainly don't think many New Zealanders condoned apartheid, but I think the other part of it to me, and probably the major part, was that the tour was in New Zealand, and that I felt it would be really bad for the game of rugby and that it would be bad for New Zealand.
The Springboks arrived to unprecedented security and intense media attention. For the South African players, the state of siege was a shock.
I don't think we understood anything until we arrived and really saw the impact of you know, what a tour can do to a country. But you know, for us the nice excuse was, and maybe still is, all we're interested in is in playing the game.
If you took away the trouble and the heartache that New Zealand went when they were here in '81, the South Africa-New Zealand 3-Test series was a classic.
55 to 60 metres.
Mixted nearly got it. Ken Stewart has it. To Shaw, to Mixted. Thrown down right on the line. Mark Shaw.
The All Blacks had won the first Test, but any hope of a clean sweep was smashed 2 weeks later when the Boks stormed back in the second.
Jerry Hermes, the defence is across. Oh, that's a fine try. And Hermes signals his return with a great try in the corner.
The stage was set for an epic third and deciding Test at Eden Park. With rugby passion and political dissatisfaction both at fever pitch, it was a nation deeply divided, even though both factions sang the same song. Despite the distractions outside and overhead, the All Blacks got off to a flying start.
Very low when it comes over. Loveridge away to Pukeri. Handles for the ball. First time in Test rugby. Hewson up and through. A chance for Wilson. Wilson pulls it down. A try. Next steady. Nearly got across. Knock on there, but a try.
New Zealand's lead at half-time was 16 points to 3, but the Boks were far from finished.
Hewson coming across, awkward bounce. Oh, and Mort's got the bounce, and it's in again. It's got to be a try, a converted try to win, a try to draw. Morta, he's got the bounce. Mort, that's the try! 22-all!
But the celebrations were premature. South Africa missed the conversion and the scores remained level. Then deep into injury time, the Boks conceded a penalty.
So 5 minutes into injury time, Alan Hewson has a chance to win the series for New Zealand. And he's done it!
Alan Hewson's series-winning penalty was a fitting end to what is still remembered as the most dramatic of all tours to this country. The protesters were back in 1986, when 30 leading players defied the rugby union and slipped out of the country for a rebel tour of South Africa. Once again, a tour provoked bitter division in New Zealand. On their return, Andy Dalton's Cavaliers paid the price with a 2-match suspension. So the selectors were forced to pick a team of no-names that were new to the public and new to each other.
I can remember going into the lunchroom and sitting down at the table, and Andy Earl came and sat at our table, Wurzel and Joe Leota, and I'd never met him, and Joe, my roommate, went to introduce me. He went, Wurzel, this is I mean, oh, yeah, hi Andy, Sean Fitzpatrick, you know. that's what we were like.
The Thursday practice was not one that I thought went very well at all. They were all trying so hard to please and do things that they were making, you know, an awful mess of things. Slowly but surely, you could see them starting to sort of fit into one another like a little bit of a jigsaw. And then I just felt by Friday night that it was actually going to be okay. I had quite a lot of confidence that these guys were going to give France an awful shock.
Fitzpatrick with the throw for the All Blacks.
And that's exactly what they did. Against the odds, the Baby Blacks did themselves and the All Black jersey proud.
Makes a little burst for the All Blacks. Taken in by Earl. Releases it nicely for Kirk. Boddicker. Having a good game, Bruno Boddicker. John Kerwin. With the strength of Kerwin. Found Harvey. Here's Brewer. Mike Brewer. Great try to the All Blacks.
It was great for those young guys, but it brought through some young talent that was so vital for New Zealand rugby going into the future, and certainly vital for New Zealand rugby going into the World Cup the next year.
That World Cup side was a perfect blend of Baby Blacks and experienced Cavaliers.
Everything came together. We played I think the All Blacks played a really good style of rugby and dominated that World Cup. Like, I don't think any side has dominated one since and will dominate one in the future.
I think it was John Hart said we have to bury the hatchet in regards to what happened, the politics of what happened, and let's move on. It's a different era. It's something new, fresh. Let's go and set the world on fire.
And right from the opening game, that's exactly what happened.
So Ambrosio kicks off. The Italians are beaten right out of the action now. New Zealand have scored 48 points, and they might be looking for 50. John Kerwin. Fijian territory. All Blacks carrying it on left. Taylor. Warwick Taylor. Support from Shelford. And Craig Green has his bird try. Going again. Into Kirk. And Kirk has scored in every World Cup match so far. Kirk frees it. Fox. Long ball to Stanley. And Gallagher's in under the posts.
So I guess the marriage of strength and mobility, which has given this All Black pack such a big advantage in every match they've played so far. One of the key men in that All Black pack, of course, is Shelford, who's setting it up again. Fox, Stanley, Joe Stanley. And there we see the strength of the All Black backline.
Auckland's Eden Park was the venue for the final. The All Black machine that had run so smoothly throughout the tournament hardly missed a beat.
All the ball is coming New Zealand's way. Another drop kick from Fox. Rajiska and Kerwin. Oh, there's 7 black shirts there. Jones. Kirk. Fox. Jones. Kirk. David Kirk. The game's not over yet. Kirk's back in the play. And through! Oh, it took a strong blow. Kerwin. Oh, I don't believe it! Kirk has scored. Kerwin has scored. Well, a great hometown victory and a great moment for rugby in New Zealand. World Cup winners.
Everyone says, was it the greatest moment in your life? And I said, well, we didn't really know what we'd done. You know, the Saturday, that Saturday night wasn't anything special. It was like, hey, good, we've achieved our goal. It's, it's more a relief than anything that we've actually done something. The Monday morning, Craig Green's standing on the corner in Christchurch at 5:30 in the morning with his lunchbox, waiting to go to work.
For the '88 series against Australia, the All Black captain was Wayne Buck Shelford. Tough and uncompromising on the paddock, Shelford epitomised the values of the jersey. His passion for the game was matched only by his passion for the haka.
Well, we said we're going to do it properly, so you have to learn the words and learn the actions. From that time, the New Zealand All Blacks have gone out of their way to learn it and learn it correctly, which is cool. And I think it's brilliant, because the day that you go back to the old style where you didn't do it well, all you're doing is you're mocking it. you're mocking a tradition, you're mocking a haka with a lot of passion and pride. And I think that, you know, you'd be embarrassing not just the New Zealand All Blacks, but you'd be embarrassing the Maori people of New Zealand.
Fired up by that haka, the All Blacks turned on one of their great test performances, leaving the Wallabies in no doubt as to who were world champions.
John Kerwin, knocked on by Miller, who hasn't really been a big influence in the match today. Buck Shelford has, though, as he wrestles his way upfield. Here's Michael Jones. Look at this. Where's the support? Kerwin. Sensational try.
The final score confirmed the All Black supremacy, and the Bledisloe Cup remained firmly in the hands of their inspirational captain. The All Blacks continued their unbeaten run under Buck Shelford, but by the time the Scots toured here in 1990, cracks were beginning to show.
How's their hooking? Oh, nice little move away. This is danger. Yes, he's got it down. Tony Stanger.
Although they won the second test, the All Blacks had been outscored 2-1. The ever-demanding public called for changes to be made. But no one expected the axe to fall on their undefeated captain. Certainly not the players.
I can speak for myself. I hadn't played that crash shot the day before, and I heard first thing in the morning that one All Black had been dumped. I thought, how? Who's that? And you know, as you can imagine, if you weren't 100% sure of your game, you'd start to flutter. But you know, it seemed to me bloody harsh.
A lot of us felt guilty that he'd been sacrificed for the way the team was playing, because we had such a great period from sort of, from when Buck took over as captain, 88, 89 and into 90. And then for him to be dumped like that, it was like, oh, what's happened here? Our leader's gone.
The public outcry at the time was intense, but 13 years on, the man himself is philosophical.
Irrespective of what went on, that's all old hat now. And I think that there comes a time then, I was 34, and so I knew I'd done my dash, and so I'd never make it back, and basically I thought to myself, hey, I've had a good innings. How many guys are representing their country in New Zealand rugby at the age of 34? And so basically, somebody else took over the position as captain and as number 8 of the side, and that person was Zinzan Brook, and he done a great job of it before he was being pushed by another player. And so I think some of the coaches have been saying it just recently, that every player that puts the jersey on is only a caretaker. Only look after it for the next person.
The All Blacks would win the following 2 matches against Australia with ease under new captain Gary Watton. But the third test signalled an Aussie revival and a chance for Phil Kearns to get something off his chest.
Big line out this one. Gary Watton, Kearns is through. Phil Kearns is through.
Got the bastard back. He'd given me hell for a couple of years.
It was never anything malicious or. But yeah, Kearns, he had an earful for 3 years. I'd just been giving it to him for 3 years, and he just had enough. And he couldn't really do anything because we were beating them every test. And then finally he scored a try, and they were going to win the game. He thought, right, that's the end of that. And we didn't actually talk until 1992, off the field I'm talking.
It had quite an impact, I think, in New Zealand. And I sort of regret it because I'm not a loudmouth, and I don't generally carry on. But I guess there was a bit of emotion built up in that.
By the 1991 World Cup, the All Blacks seemed a side on the slide. Their problems were compounded when the union appointed John Hart as co-coach to the incumbent Grizz Wiley.
I believe, as a player of that era, that his assistant and him did not get on. I'm not saying one was better than the t'other, but if he had left Grizz by himself, I think we would have done a hell of a lot better. If they had sent the assistant by himself, we might have done a hell of a lot better.
There was always the talk about the coaches and the fallout there, but we're an experienced team. We've been through a lot together, and we should have been able to sort that out ourselves.
Regardless of the politics off the field, on the field the All Blacks were beaten by a better side. 1991 was to be Australia's year.
Chance for Australia. Innes put him down with Brook. Change of direction. Lovely play. Campese. Oh, brilliant score by David Campese.
In 1992, South Africa was welcomed back into the rugby fold. It was fitting their first opponent should be the All Blacks. But Sean Fitzpatrick's team went into the match unsure of what lay ahead.
It was sort of fighting into the unknown. That they had seen us probably on video and knew what we were capable. We didn't know who they were or what they were capable. So it was, just don't worry about it, get stuck in.
And get stuck in they did. Despite a spirited late charge by the Boks, the All Blacks played a brand of rugby that was too quick, too skillful, and indeed too smart for the South Africans.
And they've taken the quick one, and it's a try for Brook. A marvellous bit of quick thinking by the New Zealand number 8 forward. So this should be a good ball if Fox can shift it quickly. This is Bunce. Bunce is through. Bunce, a lovely bit of play. Can he link up with his winger? In there for Kirwan. Kirwan with the try. Marvellous try by Kirwan.
For the first time in a decade, the British Lions toured New Zealand in 1993. After a scratchy victory in the first test, things went horribly wrong for Fitzpatrick and his All Blacks in the second.
The head just popping up there, having a look. Oh, knock on. The All Blacks have lost it. Guscott, now Underwood. He's away. He's a flyer. They'll never stop him. Not this time. Great try.
We took a bashing in the media. God, I think, I said to Gavin Hastings after that game, I said, you watch the New Zealand public turn on us now.
And it wasn't only the New Zealand public that turned on them. The British press was having a field day, celebrating the victory and slating the All Blacks' inept performance. Yet all this criticism only unified the embattled side, and the decider proved the making of a great All Black captain.
It was a great moment for that All Black team. The strength and the unity that was created because of the furore going on in the media. But Sean really stepped up that week and took a strong leadership role, and he took that into the game and had what I'd say is one of the outstanding games that a hooker and All Black captain could play.
Joseph taking it. Stensness up to Penny. Really soft tackles there from the Lions. Joseph meets a big one though through Popperwell, who just stands off later. Now quick ball. Flat there. Stensness, that's what he's there for. The kick for Bunce. What sort of bounce? It's a great bounce. This is building up stuff from the All Blacks now. Joseph, they must score here, do they, through Fitzpatrick? Yes! Sean Fitzpatrick, after all the disappointment of Athletic Park, comes up with a try.
Of all the sides the All Blacks hate losing to, England is perhaps top of the list. The 1993 All Blacks found out just how bad it could feel.
Now Bracken, Andrew with the drop. It had to come.
In a tryless match, England outkicked and outplayed the All Blacks. But the win wasn't enough for the Brits. They had to rub it in.
For the third time in London, 15 points to 9.
At the after-match function, the England players at a dinner taunted the All Blacks. And some of the New Zealand players who were in that team remembered who'd been involved in this slagging of them and locked it away for a future date.
Laurie Main's All Blacks quickly made their mark on the '95 World Cup. Any doubt they were the form side was blown away in the semis against England. The match launched a new star and had the sweet taste of revenge.
Wide to Lamu. He's got the bounce. He's heading it off his opposite. Lamu.
Look at the confidence and daring of these players. Osborne, not 2 and 5 minutes, Little. It is 2 and 5 minutes, Kronfeld. Zinzanbrook, he can pass the ball as well. Look at this. Right out to Osborne, to Lomu. Look out, Lomu in again.
To start like it did, and to to have Jonah score those tries and to play that first sort of 25, 30 minutes, the game was over. And then and then Zinzan kicking that drop kick from the 10-yard line, and I always think and Will Carling, because he actually kicked the ball, and because he's not a great kicker, but he kicked the ball trying for touch on sort of the halfway mark. It sliced off the side of his foot, and he thought, oh my God. And then he looked up and he saw a forward catching it. Saw Zinzan, he thought, oh, that's all right.
Zinzanbrook, he's trying a drop kick from a million miles out. What a goal!
The whole game just sort of flowed, and everything, went well for us. And then for a week later to play the way we did was disappointing.
When the All Blacks fronted for the final, they faced not only a formidable team, but a South African nation more determined and more united than ever before.
The Mandela factor, the way he brought the whole nation together, the blacks, the whites and the coloureds, they were there for one cause, was for the Springboks to win. And my wife was at the final, she was almost nervous that we were going to win in terms of how she'd actually get out of the stadium.
But perhaps the All Blacks' greatest opponent that day was their own failing bodies. Food poisoning had struck down almost the entire team just 2 days earlier. The All Black team that jogged on to play the final that day was a team running on empty.
They were in awful shape, really. We couldn't have ever played a game on the Friday. We would never have got a team on the field on the Friday. So, we played on the Saturday, and if you'd asked me before the game what the score was going to be, I would have probably said something like 30 to South Africa and 0 to New Zealand. It was staggering how well they did.
But history records that Joel Stransky was the man who kicked a drop goal in the dying minutes of extra time. And the Springboks, not the All Blacks, were the 1995 world champions.
His name across rugby history, perhaps. South Africa 15, New Zealand 12, at the end of a grueling and great afternoon.
Knocked on by Van der Westhuizen.
It's over. Triumph for the Rainbow Nation.
The All Blacks' mystery illness is now burned onto our rugby consciousness, and it still eats away at those closest to the team.
How it happened, no idea. How it affected us, dramatically. And it's sad, but true. It's happened. And good on the South Africans. They took their chance. And I guess it did a lot for them, but it didn't do a lot for us. We were a pretty disappointed group, and really we didn't know what to expect when we came home. And none of us wanted to go to the ARTS Centre. We just wanted to, we were all disappointed, but I think it was great we did that. There was a lot of healing, and
At the end of 1995, the All Blacks played 2 tests in France. The tour was to be Laurie Main's swan song as coach. After a disappointing first test and still smarting from the World Cup, the players were determined to give the coach a fitting farewell.
Bunce, Rush through! Beautiful run by Rush. A great try for Eric Rush.
Sean Fitzpatrick, the captain, who tells his team before a lot of the test matches, never step back. And that's what they've done today. Lomu.
Only Lomu could get a try like that.
After an outstanding performance, the players paid their coach the ultimate compliment.
End of an era. I've never seen that before, a coach being carried off the field.
I felt very embarrassed and very humble. One or two other players, when they come into the dressing room, threw me their test jersey. And, you know, they'll be with me for the rest of my life. They're jerseys that I would never give away.
In 1996, John Hart was the new coach for the new professional era. But the All Blacks' mission was an old one, to win a series in South Africa for the first time. After winning the first test, Fitzpatrick and his team had the chance to create history in the second. While we all wished them well, only one fan managed to do it in person.
Before the game, I was in my room, and I got this phone call in my room. It was like, I picked it up and this kid went, "Yeah, is Sean Fitzpatrick there, please?" I went, I could tell it was a New Zealander, because if it would have been a South African, I would have said no. And I said, yeah, it's speaking. He said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, it is, mate." He said, "Oh, g'day, mate, it's Tom Brown," or whatever his name was. He said, "In Gisborne, we're having a party, just about to sit down to watch the game. Just wanted to wish you boys the best of luck." I said, "Oh, great, thanks, mate."
With team and supporters primed for an epic encounter, the game itself lived up to all expectations.
South Africans getting up the middle of the field very quickly indeed. Marshall, this is another good run by the brave Canterbury halfback. He's got Ian Jones with him. He gives it instead to Robin Brooke, and now to Ian Jones, to Wilson. What a super try. Right around behind the posts, a great try. Brooke to Marshall. Cullen up Wilson. Good chase here by Wilson. He's got the bounce. That's two for Wilson. It's there for Marshall. Are they going to have the drop kick? Brooke is trying to put the game beyond doubt, and he's done it. He's done it. Brooke and the New Zealand team have seized the moment.
But as usual, the Boks refused to lie down and could still tie it up in the dying seconds.
So the New Zealanders fighting with every fibre of their being.
They dropped that one, they got it down.
Cobus Spisa.
Hang on to it, New Zealand.
Hang on to it, New Zealand. It's over. History has been made. The players are exhausted. They're on the deck. What a great game we've seen. The New Zealand side have claimed this moment as their time for the history books. And as you can see, they've played themselves literally into the ground.
The South Africans threw everything they had on the field at us that they possibly could. And I'll never forget that moment, because it showed me just how much they'd given for the jersey we all love.
Yeah, to see they had these nuns, I don't know if you remember the nuns that followed us around, and I can still picture them in that great stand at Loftus, in the back row with the blue sky behind them, and they were just, you know, like, this was just amazing.
It was a special moment for all Blacks.
To see the great Don Clark crying his eyes out, saying thank you so much for doing this for all Blacks that have tried and failed. It means a lot to everyone.
3 years later, the All Blacks went into the World Cup without Sean Fitzpatrick. Despite a poor season the year before, expectations were as high as ever. With Tane Randall in charge, the All Blacks once again saved their best for England.
Umanga, big ball to Mertens. High one to Lomu. Lomu and Guscott. Lomu again. It's 1995 all over again.
With Lomu on fire, the All Blacks confidently headed into their semi-final with France. The match was seen as little more than a formality. No one told the French.
The one side in the world that will always do the unexpected and can beat anyone on any given day is France.
The All Blacks were up by 14 points soon after the break. It was business as usual. Then it all went horribly wrong.
Stole it off. Wilson on the ground. No one at home deep.
Oh, Dominici! Lamazon! Doctor!
I have to say, I think the critique of a game has been pretty shallow ever since. If you actually look at that game, France played 30 minutes of the most unbelievable rugby you've ever seen.
It is all over. The hopes and dreams of the All Blacks at the 1999 Rugby World Cup are over.
When they lost that day against France at Twickenham in the semi-final, I think the public didn't want to come down hard on Lamu and Jeff Wilson and Mertens and all the guys on the field. They scanned the horizon and they found the coach from Auckland, the guy that always had something to say. He'd never been an All Black, and it was John Hart, and they took it out on Hart in the most cruel manner.
You know, you'd like to be able to step down with some, you know, with some humility and pride. I was really disappointed with what happened in the aftermath of that World Cup, you know, disappointed with the reaction of only a few sections of the media and some sections of the public. But that's life, I suppose, and that's part of the All Black coach these days.
They were shouting at me, for God's sake. They were saying, "Keith, what went wrong? Where's that bloody Hart?" You know, I was so disappointed at their reaction. I really was. And if there's one lesson to be learned about the Rugby World Cup this time, it's not to go into this World Cup with the same high level of expectations.
In the new millennium, the All Blacks travelled across the ditch to take on the champion Aussies. In front of a world record crowd, the match turned out to be one of the great ones.
Marshall, Mertens has it partially charged, but it could work to the All Blacks' advantage. Alatini, ball popped up, Umaga, here's the first try, and Tana's under the bar. All Blacks with a 7-point advantage. Handed away by Umaga, they're shifting it smartly. Now Lamu's in the clear. One-on-one. Gregan comes across, he's got support. Alatini, fantastic. All Blacks totally dominant at the moment. Now Marshall, away for Mertens. Ramir almost slipped, did it, got it away to Alatini. Carlinger won't stop him either.
The All Blacks scored 24 points in just 8 minutes, but the Wallabies were about to strike back.
And Larkin side the through. And Murdoch for the corner. This is a try fest. Now Gregan looking wide. Murdoch's in. And now here comes Latham.
Incredibly, with just seconds left on the clock, it was the Aussies in front, and the All Blacks had just one last chance.
Kelleher. Randall pops up to Lamu. Here we go. Can he make it? You betcha. You betcha. Jonah's in.
And so to 2003, World Cup year again. And the All Black season gets off to a rough start.
Game is over. England get the victory.
But the All Blacks were in no mood to lie down. Carlos Spencer led the call to arms.
Nice pass off to Muliaina. Rocket Boko should have too much speed, and he has. Divine now to Spencer. Spencer running hard, lobs it over the top. Rocket Boko's in, and there's the first try of the test. Marshall's going to get him. There's plenty of them out to the right. In fact, they're lining up. Major, now he might be able to do it himself. Aaron Major is going to, and there's 50 points for the All Blacks. Rocket Boko, Spencer, spreading it wide as quickly as possible to Muliaina, looking to straighten it a little. Muliaina gets the pass back on the inside. Umaga, Tana's in. In centre field, 10 out from the 22. Marshall delivers to Major, stabs it through. Here come the runners. Rocket Boko is too quick. They look to counter-attack from the back. Muliaina got through. Now McCaw. He's got some support. Didn't see Collins just to his right. And the All Blacks set it again. Now Marshall away for Spencer. Long one out to Mialamu. Howard wants to join in. Mialamu away to Doug Howard. That's a brilliant try. Game is over. The Bledisloe Cup is back in New Zealand.
So the first 100 years of Test rugby ends the way it began. As for the second, bring it on.